The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Before we forget, let's do that quick run through. I'm not going to give the complete laundry list because it's too long for these people here.
That's okay.
For Coppola, like we've mentioned, he is the man behind the Godfather trilogy.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about all three films, he still created the entire trilogy.
Heck
and
yes.
Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
All of this that we're talking about him going above and beyond, watch Apocalypse Now and you will learn the definition of eccentric filmmaker.
Oh, yes.
The Hearts of Darkness documentary about the making of was probably the greatest thing I watched in college as an undergrad. It taught you everything to do and not to do about making a movie.
I was going to say that's a 101 class right there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Doc.
Yeah. So Coppola has a history of eccentricness, and it comes out beautifully in everything he makes. So whatever, It's totally worth it.
That's the point of view of this story and that time period is to be eccentric.
And I think all of his stories
necessary.
Apocalypse Now is a group of eccentric men that are off the rails. The Godfather even is.
Who's more eccentric than Italian men? We know a couple.
Yes, and it.
We can speak from people in our family.
Yes, and almost every Italian man I know takes some little bit of pride that he's a little bit like one of the characters in The Godfather. I mean, like, everybody picks their own guy, but there's always someone they identify with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and took my eccentric men.
I totally appreciate that.
Yes. Okay, the cast. The amazing cast. I will pick, we could just go back and forth really quick. Gary Oldman. Think top Gary Oldman films. Sid and Nancy. I always love to think of him as from Leon the Professional.
Oh, yes.
That's one of my favorite.
You want to talk about
parts.
When Gary is evil, which he does the most, and he does it really well. The Professional. Gary Oldman screaming is one of my, I used to think, I'm like, I bet somebody somewhere on YouTube's made a compilation and I never looked.
Oh, yeah,
but
sure.
If there's like a Gary Oldman yelling like master cut, that would be because no one can yell with the ferocity that he has.
Just the image of him.
I love it.
As the off-the-rails cop listening to classical music as he enters a crime scene.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just beautiful. All right, so let's move on. Anthony Hopkins. I mean,
you know how much I love Hannibal Lecter, girl.
It's also strange to me that I forget some of his other films, like The Elephant Man. Yeah. Amazing. And I'm not, I'm not a Lynch fan, but I love The Elephant Man.
We don't have to talk about that.
That's a story for another day. But even if you think of him in horror, I mean, Wolfman, which is I personally enjoyed that film. I thought he was excellent in that. No props, but that movie I thought was great. And nowadays you can't not think of him as Thor. We should also mention it's impossible to not remember Gary Oldman these days without thinking of the Harry Potter franchise,
of course,
and the Batman franchise. I have some sort of disconnect that's the same man in some ways to me, because
I think a lot of times this was for me was the first time I saw Gary Oldman act.
Yes.
I'm 14. I hadn't seen Sid and Nancy. I'm sorry, I wasn't that cool of a kid. I watched it in high school. Okay. I fell in love with him. Besides the character, always being a vampire fan, yes. And then seeing Dracula represented as the realisticness of this is Vlad, and now we're going to take the story from like the historical guy and go forward with it, blew my mind. Because up until then, that hadn't existed. I know we went through that. And besides, I find him just being like a gorgeous, attractive man, what he can do with his ability to act is astounding, because he does morph into totally different people. We've seen him, he played Churchill, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was recent.
Yes. I didn't watch it yet, but
I haven't seen that yet.
whoever he can be, and I know makeup and prosthetics can help with that too, but then the voice will change, his face will change. He'll just be that human, that person.
And I meant to say this.
Not.
I meant to say this before when we were talking about the collaboration experience and how sometimes you butt heads. He butted heads with Coppola on almost everything, but to know that because he knew both of them wanted a little bit of their way, so he's like, I will give him some of his, but I got to have a little bit of mine too.
Exactly.
And that's so much in his art and the way he portrays everything. And
because he takes it so personally to heart.
Yes.
He's like, I'm going to be this, but this is how they would be. Mm-hmm. R.I.P. Sirius Black, just because that's one of my favorite characters.
Same here. I love how he is in that, but it's weird for me to think of him as a franchise
Commissioner Gordon?
Yes.
Sirius Black?
Different, but
you couldn't, they could be in the same room together. They're that different.
Yes.
That's not the same guy.
But that's it's hard for me to think Sir Anthony Hopkins, right?
Yes.
As Thor's dad.
Exactly.
That's a little weird for me, but it works so amazing. Both cases.
He's perfect, exactly.
Yeah, they're actors who can just flow into whomever you want them to be. Mm-hmm. And I think it's amazing. Other people who round out this cast, which isn't even to round out because it's so much more still. Right. Winona Ryder, it's funny to think that this was almost the beginning or like the middle of what we think of as her career.
This is true, right? She had done a bunch with Burton already.
Yes.
And I know she was supposed to be in the third Godfather, but pulled out almost at the very end because of a health issue. And
it was Sophia. I think she was Sophia's character, right?
Yeah.
Sophia Coppola's character, yeah.
And that's when he then he's like, okay, it's yours, daughter.
Hey, when you have a backlog of family that you can rope into the biz,
family who's part of it, that's cool. But she's the one that brought this to Coppola. Yeah,
which is amazing.
We had mentioned before.
Yeah. But to her, I mean, obviously Heather's huge movie for our generation. Yeah. I don't know if it means as much to anybody else in the world as it does to people who are our age, but that's a huge film. And like you said, I mean, her works with Burton. I mean, Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, amazing. Yes. I kind of almost forget that's her and Edward Scissorhands because she's blonde. I know,
exactly. Yeah. It's yes.
But also, you can't not think of things like Girl Interrupted, Mermaids, and of course Reality Bites, which is another film that probably our generation, nobody else gets as much to do.
It's
a lot of love.
Big time impacted Victoria and I and some of our other friends, life-wise.
It's definitely so. Winona Ryder is someone that I think our age, our generation grew up with, and
that's what was so cool about it.
Yeah, to see her in this.
Yeah, and then I'll segue into Keanu, and I know that's the somewhat controversial cast, so we could talk about it. But that was even part of it for me. So I was seeing I didn't see a trailer in the movies for this, but I saw the TV trailers, the TV spots.
I did too.
And as they kept playing, I was getting so excited. Besides, the build, how they were edited, the build up with the music, and I see Winona Ryder, who I also like, and Keanu Reeves, who I already like. And I know they wanted to cast young, beautiful, good actors in this, and I didn't know this, but Johnny Depp was mainly slated to almost the very end to be Jonathan. And Winona and Johnny were together, and she wanted Johnny Depp. He was ready to do it too, but the studio said Johnny wasn't big enough yet.
Wow.
He wasn't a big enough star. Keanu had a big name.
Think of that now.
Because of Bill and Ted. Yep. I know. Think of, right. Keanu had a big name because of Bill and Ted, and Winona also said, I'd love to work with Keanu Reeves. He's a friend of mine. So if that's who else they could consider, because Charlie Sheen was considered too, but then no.
Well, I don't think no.
I'm glad that wasn't a thing.
No, I can't picture that.
When Keanu's name came up, she's like, I love him too, yes. And then that worked out. Now,
yes, amazing.
I say it worked out. There's a million people who didn't. He got slammed initially in reviews of this too, which the reviews were kind of middle ground to know when I looked at some of the big names, like a Siskel and Ebert thing. So I know Keanu has even gone back and said he didn't love his performance because he said he was really fatigued at the time from a lot of back-to-back filmmaking leading up to this.
Right.
But if you want to look at it in the bigger scale, so let's say if people have complained that they didn't like his accent or maybe he was a little wooden or whatever, that's also Jonathan Harker.
Mm-hmm. Harker
Jonathan is
he's an
simple,
awkward person.
Awkward, innocent guy. If you want to do,
Yeah.
here's like Victorian, middle class, straight British man who's just like, oh, proper this, that, okay, this is a weird situation, but we're going to see what happens. I'm in this castle. I'm going to,
Right. He's too proper not to say anything, right?
Exactly. And that's the way I feel like over the years that I've watched this, that Jonathan would just be. So I was fine with it. People like when I tell everyone I'm going to talk about which one of your favorite movies or your top 3 or what do you love, and I'm always like spouting Bram Stoker's Dracula like a giant fountain of love, and they're like, oh, Keanu though, and I was like, check yourself and hold it. I'm like, first I don't want to hear it, and then the context of every character and how they're portrayed in the film and the way they're supposed to be, that works to me. That works for me as Jonathan.
I can say I've never had an issue with his performance because, much like Winona, both of them are very stiff.
They're innocent. They're innocent characters.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's who they were. I will say, his accent is not great.
No,
but
I know
he's aware of that. Everyone's aware of that. I mean,
he even said he's like, oh, I could have been better in the accent thing.
That's the only
I don't hold it against you.
that
You're a sweet, wonderful man. It's fine. If I ever got to meet him, I would tell him how much I love this movie.
And you know what? You have to think of it in these practical terms, even though this is Francis Ford Coppola, who could make any movie he wanted to make. But you're in a Hollywood system, and you're going to want 2 hot actors at that time.
Yes.
And you can't get much bigger in 1992 than Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves. If maybe Johnny Depp now, in retrospect, would have been bigger. But to say that those 2 people maybe aren't the best performances in the film, they were probably the most required people in the film, and you cannot take that away from it because it helped its popularity. It helped garner the money the movie needed. It made it special to
kids like us at the time.
And it was a draw.
Our teenage us were like, oh, we love them, and they're in this they're in this genre looking thing that we also like because we like spooky kind of pretty weird stuff, and then 2 of our favorite actors are in there.
But that's the thing. I mean, you can't not have known Bill and Ted when growing up in the time period we grew up. And then to know that he would go on to be, the guy of the Matrix fame, and then now John Wick. And, it's hard to, there's a lot of films in there that he's done, but those franchises, I mean, even Speed. I was talking to my sister the other day. It's like, you know what? I saw Speed and Speed 2 in the theater because those were big, huge movies.
Huge.
And you have to remember the impact that they had on box office and making this movie happen. So all of that to say,
summer blockbuster. That's what it is. Was. Yeah.
So maybe he lost his accent halfway through the film. Possibly. But if that's the biggest problem you have with this movie, there's so much more in the 2 hours.
Yeah, and if you can't see anything else and go watch something else and step out of my theater.
Yeah.
Here's the door. I don't have time for you.
But actually, we should round it out. Carrie Ewell's. We mentioned he's, one of Lucy's suitors.
I loved seeing him in there. I was already a super hardcore Princess Bride fan. Yeah. So anytime Carrie always steps into a film that I didn't know about, I don't remember, he might have been in the trailer that I saw on TV. I'd be like, oh, an extra special bonus. He's here too.
He's
plus.
I maybe not as illustrious a career after, but films like, Twister's big. Yeah. The Crush, Robin Hood Men in Tights, not the best comedy in the world, but still, it was a big movie.
It's still better than Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Oh my God!
Talk about the after effects
I didn't even think to go there, but let's just warn everyone now. That was one of the worst horror comedies, Mel Brooks movie, anything.
Mel is a genius and we love him.
And I was so in for him doing the parody of one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
And then
my dad and I saw Dracula Dead and Loving It in the theater because we thought we love Mel Brooks. We knew it was going to spoof on Bram Stoker's Dracula, which my dad took me to, and it became like a favorite movie of ours. I kind of get that influence of that kind of genre stuff from my father growing up. It's not my mom's thing at all. So we were so excited to see that movie, and man, what a bummer. From start to finish.
So not funny. Oh man.
I never not laughed the most at Leslie Nielsen and Mel Brooks. Like, what could go wrong?
There was a great cast, and
so Men in Tights is still better than that.
Men in Tights is better than that.
I'll still watch Men in Tights.
You could probably have cut down Men in Tights to a really tight half-hour movie, with some really great jokes, but it's an hour and a half with some jokes spread out. That's how you have to look at it. But yeah. This is a warning to the younger generation or people who may not know and like, oh, I like Dracula. Oh, this movie looks.
When we talk about how it echoes into other things, like we talked about the movies that came after, not this. No, just watch. And I meant to look it up, Vic, and I feel so bad. Which Treehouse of Horror had the Dracula?
Oh, it was really early because it was one part of the first line action figures too.
Because they have the little I love the little Mr. Burns shadow where it's doing different things like playing yo-yo. And silly stuff behind.
And just the playing with the fact that his hair looks like a brain, you know. I love that. It's cute. It's a great little addendum to the history of this film. Okay. Exactly. I think we have definitely gushed quite a bit.
I can't let anything go without just Tom Waits' Renfield.
Oh, we did mention Tom Waits, but I guess we should give more context to who Tom Waits is, because to not have seen it in the 90s, you may not know now the importance of that, right?
Right, for Tom Waits, who really wasn't an actor.
No, he has a couple of cameos in films. But.
Right, exactly. He had cameos in films. He is a musician, an amazing piano player, kind of Torch style singer, storyteller that I'm a big fan. Very distinct voice. I think you love it or hate it. I do love it. The role was actually initially offered to Steve Buscemi.
Oh God.
Which would have which blows my mind, and I'm trying to think because we love Buscemi with his big eyes, but I don't think it would have been a totally different Renfield.
No.
And I don't know if it would have worked with this because for Tom to be as gruff and gravelly and also over the top as Renfield is, like a guy who has straight up lost his mind over Dracula and that's super obsessed and that's all he could think about. But he was really gunning for the role. Yeah. It's something he's wanted to play for a long time.
I was trying to I was looking it up to try and find the way to explain what kind of singer-songwriter Waits was, because he's not typical. Particularly of his generation, he's not typical.
I'd say he's like a poet, storyteller.
Yeah, what he had in his bio was that he used the term Tin Pan Alley, which is like a 20s term.
Yes,
that's perfect for him because it is this kind of old-fashioned kind of way that he had to him, into that style.
He tells you a tale.
Yes, it's very different. I guess the only other person I could think of in that vein is
Leonard Cohen.
Thank you, Leonard Cohen.
Yes. Those two are kind of like peers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are fans of one are definitely fans of the other. They kind of go hand in hand.
And that is a very home style poet kind of outside of the pop music spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just in one last thing I want to mention about the casting is, and we didn't really get a chance to kind of go into some of our favorite scenes more, but I would like to say, and maybe this caught me more in this watch through the film than it had in previous, we know Gary Oldman is Dracula throughout the entire film.
Right.
It is interesting that because we talk about this kind of Romeo and Juliet-like story that Vlad has with his wife, Elizabetha, she is played also by Winona Ryder. So Winona Ryder is as current throughout his life as well. And you see the image of Winona kind of is something that ties the the past and the future for him.
Right. No makeup or effects or anything with her. Her hair may be down and Mina's is up,
right.
but
It's
that's
different.
She looks exactly like her, which I think is the great part of that.
But it was also wonderful for me this time. More, what I noticed this time was how Anthony Hopkins.
Yes.
I did not realize how important a role he had in the past, and him being the head of the church. So this is the church that Vlad Tepes is fighting for. This is the Catholic Church of life.
Murdered and pillaged for however long. He is the main soldier in battle for Christ, defeat the other empires. He's doing it. He's their guy.
Right. And
after all he's done.
The head of the church to say, well, you had said earlier, Alison, that Elizabeta is given the misinformation. The Turks told her, sent a note to the castle that her husband had been killed, and she cannot see a life without him. So she commits suicide. She jumps out of a tower. No spoilers. Come on, this is like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
I know this is what we learn in the beginning.
Yeah, this is just the beginning. So, but to know that the priest who then tells the returning Vlad, the champion, telling him, your wife committed suicide, therefore her that's sin. She cannot go to heaven.
Right, she's lost. In the
God will forsaken her. And this is the turning point. So it is Anthony Hopkins as that priest telling Vlad Tepes that the church is now against him, and that's what is the impetus for him to reject the church, to reject Christ. He does a triumphant stab the cross that bleeds, and he drinks the blood. And
he says, look what and he says, after, he pretty much says, after all I've done for you, this is how you treat me.
Right.
And this is what after all I've fought and done and killed for you, this is how you treat me. This is what your religion's doing to me. Well, then I'm done.
And like we know from the crucifixion and the story of the Eucharist, this is where the line that is repeated throughout the entirety of the film, the blood is life. The blood is the life. And I will drink the blood. I will have the life. And that's how he curses himself to immortality, which is a different take than other films of how vampires must be sired. No, he curses himself, and that's
he creates him. Yes, he creates the vampire within to go against the church, to be like the dark and the dark resurrection, right? The dark Jesus.
Yes,
you want to call it that.
So to think that so we have this trio of people that will go through this kind of life together in this triangle of love and conflict, and to think that comes from, it represents the past and the future of Dracula, because now we see the same two characters. We see Anthony Hopkins now as Helsing, and we see Winona Ryder as Mina, and his life has come full circle.
Yep.
And it's his generation.
The positive and the negative within the most positive thing in his life, and that's the image of the most negative thing, which has now become his vampire hunter rival that he finds in Van Helsing, represented as the priest in the church that, cursed his wife to eternal damnation because of her suicide.
Just to think that casting is that important to how we see the entirety of the story is amazing, and it just really stuck out.
How smart it is to have Anthony, because they could have thrown anyone in that role to not think of it.
Yes.
But to think let's stick him in this role with a big beard and see if maybe anyone notices when he shows up again as Van Helsing, if they remember that they saw him already as the priest that, told Vlad that Elizabetha wasn't going to be saved.
Right. So that's an amazing kind of I love when things are mirrored like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out. I just think that's beautiful. That's forethought, and that's planning, and that's amazing casting to pull that off.
When there's smarts and cleverness into the art.
Yep.
That's what makes it. That's another point that makes it so special to us.
And that is another trick that you would see more in an art film, I would say, than in a typical
for sure.
drama or genre film. Yeah. Any other key moments in the film? Because I know we missed so many, but anything else you wanted to throw in there?
I don't think that's fine, because I want it to be we'll describe how amazing it is, but for people to enter into this, because I really would love to see after when this is up, if people who have never watched Bram Stoker's Dracula are like, I'm going to give it a chance because I watched this.
Yeah.
And okay, if they didn't like it, what's wrong with you? But I still want to see, post the comments and everything below. I want to see people whose first time watching it. I'd love to know, especially in the world of what filmmaking and films are now, how it would resonate with someone who hasn't watched films like this previously.
And I think I love that you bring that up, because I think that's very much the point of this series. And as someone who I love being so active in our comments, I like that I've been able to turn you onto films that you maybe have kind of passed kind of passed by and decided to give another try, because listening to talking about it makes a difference.
Yeah, I just appreciate that in you. That's also like a point of our friendship.
Yeah,
that's one of like the pillars of, for everyone who doesn't know Vic and I, personally, that was like one of the things that hooked us together, was talking about stuff we loved. And then, did you see? No, I didn't see this. Did you hear this album? No. Okay, I love this. You'd like this. Oh, cool. And just sharing back and forth.
Just to give you kind of any kind of introduction to our friendship. We met in college, and at a Star Wars function at the college. It was like a trivia thing.
Right, yes.
Right. And they, it was pretty lame.
I was going to say, it wasn't that eventful of an event.
No, but we met each other there.
Yes.
And we ended up hanging out at my dorm apartment, talking for hours.
Hours.
And, half of that was Star Wars. And then I took out my case of all my VHS tapes. And we went through the movies together and found out we loved Tarantino. We
music,
loved so many movies, that's why, that's why I think we're still friends, because we're still constantly having that conversation.
We are, and every time we sit and talk. It's part of it. So where you were talking about, favorite scenes, I'll go through one thing because there's so much, but I feel like this also echoes back to the triangle that's mirrored. So there's a lot of great mirroring scenes where you talk about smart filmmaking and storytelling, where one version of something's happening and its dark opposite is happening at the same time. And one of my favorite scenes is when Jonathan and Mina finally get together and do get married. She goes to him after he escapes, and then they're having their union at a church that he's found to seek refuge in, and she goes to him. And then there's the union of Dracula and Lucy when she finally dies her human self and then will be turned into a vampire. And that union is a wolf breaking into her bedroom and pretty much tearing at her and killing her until she's fully dead.
And not the wolf man that
the actual wolf.
Right. This is a wolf. Yeah, this is a four-legged wolf. This is not Dracula wolf.
They wanted to use the man. They wanted to use him as the man, but I think there was a time and money restraint, so that's why they went to straight animal. Mm-hmm. So it's like he's him, but it turns into a full wolf. So it cuts in between that marriage, that union, and would say the dark, shadow marriage and union of Lucy and Dracula. And at the very end, so one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I love blood in films, okay? So vampire fan, here we go. So one of my favorite scenes involving a large amount of blood is always going to be the blood elevator in The Shining. There is nothing that hit me on this level of a visual that I was ecstatic about the first time I saw it, when the door slowly opened and the blood gets off on the second floor, if we can reference The Simpsons doing The Shining.
Yes,
or the shin. I always do. Every time I rewatch the movie, I'm excited to see it. I'm like, here comes the blood elevator. So now Bram Stoker's Dracula is my second favorite excessive use of blood in a film. At the very end, where Mina and Jonathan are kissed, their sweet little kisses of we're married, sweet, love. The very end where Lucy's done and screams, let's say the death of her human self, there are two giant fountains of waves of blood that shoot in and across her bed. I love that. That, like, again, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. And so then I come to find out that that was just something that happened, by circumstance, because the B unit had extra blood. And they're like, what are we going to do with all this extra blood left over? We're done shooting. And they were like, let's put it in air cannons and shoot it over her bed for this really cool shot. And finding that out that, added another level of like specialness to it, which now maybe when I watch it, I'll have like a little chuckle and be like, oh, they just came on the fly. Like, look, let's shoot that extra blood. Why let it go to waste? It's cool. We got it. We paid for it. We made it. Let's do it.
But I love that scene because when I think of it, I do think of that iconic image from The Shining, and just like how I see now the kind of that nod to The Exorcist, I feel like the filmmakers in a lot of ways just to be creative on the set and to kind of show their love, and I think there's nothing wrong with showing your heart on your sleeve as a filmmaker. They reference The Shining in a way that they could, and that's wonderful that they can fit that in there.
I love that. I love when artists do that.
Yeah.
David Bowie was a big one, not to bring him in, but if I'm talking, he's going to come up.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
When artists reference other art that they love but make it their own, and just to do a cute nod, because when it's not a direct ripoff, it's like a really sweet, special thing that if you know it too, you see it. And it's like another little present you got watching this and being a fan of it. Like, oh, we like the same thing. That's cool.
He's a little wink and a nod, right? Like,
hey,
we're all in on the same.
I got you.
And I love that, and I appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Speaking of loving and appreciating, this is the part of the show where we're going to talk about all the ways that we personally have collected Bram Stoker's Dracula. So I'm going to start off. I did not keep my VHS tape. I've said
me
before,
neither. It's okay.
It's VHS fall apart when you watch movies as often as we do.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see that format die. But I do have the DVD.
Yes.
Which is the collector's edition DVD. It's a beautiful set. This is Columbia Pictures official high def with wonderful extras and deleted scenes, a half hour of deleted scenes. This is a great edition. If you're not a Blu-ray person, I do recommend. What I will say, the only downer of that was that watching my Blu-ray and realizing it's the same exact content.
Oh, is it? So nothing had changed? Because I don't remember the DVD.
I see, and I know I watched those extras, but watching this, I'm like literally watching down the list, and I'm like, no, I've seen all these. It's just been like a decade, so I didn't remember them as well.
Right.
But that's my bummer of this episode, is that I was like, oh my God, I ran out and bought this as soon as it said collector's edition.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have to wait to see if there's a better collector's edition, because I'm unhappy with this. But
yeah,
I will say, I know that you in your household, you guys have gone 4K where I have not.
Yes.
And your edition, is it different?
Yeah. So I've got the 4. So I still do have my Blu-ray. Before that, I had the DVD. I'm trying to remember if I had the collector's edition DVD.
I think we both,
because I might have had
around the same time.
Yeah, I might have had that, and I think I might have given them the DVD to my dad, because I was like VHS, then gave him that, then when I got the DVD. Then I got the DVD, gave him that, got the Blu-ray.
Right.
Blu-ray, this hung out for a while, and then here's the 4K. And if you have the means, and this is how you view, if you've got a home theater or if you have like the 4K television, this is the way to go for the sound and the the image quality for sure. The second disc is pretty much the Blu-ray.
Oh.
So it's
still the same content.
Almost all the same content. There's just there's a couple new things.
Okay.
I saw that there was a commentary with Coppola, which I think is on here.
That's on here too, yes.
Right. There's a commentary with Francis, Roman, and Greg Cannon, who was the set designer.
Okay, so
designer, and that's what I watched last night. So that's new.
That's new content.
So there's Coppola's still commentary, and then there's a commentary with the three of them.
Okay.
And then there were a couple of new featurettes where it was an interview with Coppola talking about it, a couple years later, and then an interview with him and his son grown up.
Okay, so there is some updates.
So those are some updates that are put in there too.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So that's what, and if you have, like I said, if you've got the tech that you're using to watch 4K, yes, do that.
All right, that's worth the upgrade. I will just throw it out there that while I did get rid of my VHS years ago, I did actually kind of recently acquire Laserdisc.
So everyone knows Vic is the Laserdisc hero. And girl, let me see that. Yes.
Gatefolds are beautiful. I saw this at a convention for $5.
I was going to ask you. Awesome. Yeah. So when did you pick that up?
I think only like 2 years ago. Every now and then, I'll still find somebody with a bin, and they're almost always Laserdisc for $5. And I may not watch this in this format ever, but if I get to meet, which would be amazing, but if I got to meet any of these people,
if you're getting to meet those people, I better be behind you.
You will be next to me. Yes, I know.
Okay, good.
But this is why for $5 it is worth to have in my collection.
That's really awesome.
One day I would like to get this signed by anyone related to this film. Maybe Roman Coppola. That would be cool. But I will say there is a special edition gatefold. What is great about this is I love the old style of the laser multi-discs. So it's a 3-sider, which I love.
Oh.
Half hour per side of the movie, and if you have an old Laserdisc player, you literally would have to flip the movie like a record.
That's when it stopped. So how does I'd only watch Laserdisc, like I had a friend with his family had money, so he had a Laserdisc player back in high school. It was like the only kid I knew. That's actually the first time I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show was on Laserdisc at his house.
That's cool.
I forget. What would it be like? Turn the disc now, or it would just stop and you'd know.
You'd literally
when you hear the bell, turn the disc.
No, it's not like the old read along 45 records from Disney.
Still. Yes.
But it would give you a slate and it would say turn disc. Much like if you're watching I'm watching all of Game of Thrones on Blu-ray right now, and it'll tell you. You can actually, most Walking Dead does the same thing. I can say play all from disc 1, and it'll just tell me what disc is. Okay. So it's similar to that, but later versions of Laserdisc players did have the technology where the laser could switch. So it would play side for you. You wouldn't have to change anything until the second side, or the second. What is special about this is, of course, when VHS was king, the audio quality was never going to be better than what it was. So the great thing about Laserdiscs at that time was that you could get excellent sound quality, but it also was the first time, I believe, it's called deluxe widescreen version. I believe it was the first letterbox edition.
Ooh.
So that was special at the time, because this is definitely a movie you want to see the whole frame. You want to see
and you don't want to miss a piece of it, because every inch of it's gorgeous, like you said.
Beautiful, lush, everything about it.
There's little pieces. There's even things that I feel like maybe I hadn't noticed in a while with a clearer picture. Like I saw faces, like stone faces carved into things that I don't remember seeing in the castle. Stuff like that, where now when I was watching 4K on like a bigger screen, because we have like a theater type screen in here, I was like, oh, did I notice that before? I'm not sure.
Even like the rats scurrying upside down to show that gravity is off in this world was more clear. Watching it on the even on my non 4K TV. But watching the Blu-ray edition, it's much clearer.
Exactly.
But also, I mean, and you can really see some of the details in the background, like you're saying. I don't remember realizing quite how Escher-like the stairwells were in the background, the broken castle. So, it's a clearer picture is always, it's always the little details you're going to grab here and there that are just so worth it. Now, my extent of my Dracula collection is mostly right here. I also had the graphic novel, which I believe you also have.
Yes.
Show us some of the rest of your collection, because I know yours is
okay. So you're talking about like the film and the legend that we have. This one?
Well, no. I have the comic book.
Okay. Oh yes.
Yep. That I have that one. Yeah.
I mean, this book is.
So that's like a full film book.
This is a full film book, and it also is the full script.
Oh, wow.
Besides it being the script where my nerdy self, besides being able to memorize the film as much as I've seen it, if I wanted to go back and just check a line or two for myself just to make sure I heard it the right way, it's all here. If I was ever the kind of fan that used to dress in elaborate gowns and sometimes watch the movie alone with candles lit and recite the movie word for word.
If you'd ever want to do something like that.
I don't know.
Who would
if you're that kind of person.
I don't know. Yeah.
It's in here. And along with that are little tidbits of the filmmaking. So there would be little side stories of, Aiko talking about the costume design, or here's how we did this shot with the green mist. So it's also like a filmmaking book with the film with the script inside.
Excellent. That
very
sounds
cool.
awesome.
I love it.
Yep,
yeah.
Need that.
There's another book that I didn't pick up that I kicked myself because I remember seeing. It's Aiko and Coppola and Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's all about the costume design.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that might have been one of those things when it was out that I saw it, and because of my age and what it might have cost, it was like, I can't afford it. Of course, when I go look for it now, people want $120 and up for it, so I can't... One day, who knows?
Right. That's you got to look for one that's like got a damaged corner or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's still somewhere in my head, kicking myself. But as a teenager, if this was like a $50 book, there was no way that I was going to be able to pick that up. This was given to me by friends of ours. It's a copy of a Cinema Fantastique. Yeah, that I know they had a subscription to, and when they got to know me and how much I love this, they said, Alison, I know you'd appreciate it, which was very sweet.
Very nice.
My most prized possession will be, and now it's framed, and I'll give you a little screenshot later. I still have a movie poster from, I guess I'll say 1993, because it had to have come out when Dracula came out on VHS.
Okay.
It is the original poster in perfect condition that I've kept for that long. So my hometown video store, which you know of that world because you worked in one and how important they were, it was called Pinelands Video. And I was in there all the time, and I got to know the skinny, kind of quiet, balding, movie guy, kind of nerdy, sweet dude who ran the store. And my family and I were in there all the time renting movies. I was in there with my friends. And I remember the signs. It had to be signs in the video store saying it was coming to rent soon, right? Coming to video. And there's probably some commercials on TV. So seeing it once in the theater, it had my heart. It blew my mind. I fell in love. And soon, I could watch it again finally, because I only saw it that one time. I don't think a lot of us did repeat films that time, especially because I had to get an adult to bring me.
And we were dealing with living off of having limited funds.
Exactly. We were teenagers with an allowance or, with that.
Yeah.
So when it was time to rent it, and my dad, I had loved this movie since I saw it, and I was so excited. And I was one of the ones to reserve. I reserved one of the first copies to rent. So I went in there, reserved it, and I believe he had a poster up, and I mentioned something about could I maybe purchase or have that poster. And when it was time, when I got the phone call, your movie's in. He had a copy. He had that poster rolled up. He had a poster rolled up for me. So when I rented my video, he gave me that poster, and that's still the poster that I have today hanging up. It was in my room. I kept it nice. I guess it's, now considered vintage because it's from 1992.
Yeah.
We're vintage.
We're old.
And that's something that's very, very special to me.
That's excellent.
I made a list of a few things, something I remember, and some things I found out that I didn't know existed.
What do we got here? What do we need to put on our eBay list?
I was going to ask you, do you remember the Super NES video game from 93?
I do. I remember renting it. I remember it being god awful.
Yes.
I don't know if I bought it and then sold it back when I got rid of a bunch of games, but I don't remember it being worthy. And I'm tempted to double check to make sure I didn't just buy it to have it on the shelf, though. So I may own it.
So my best friend Krista, who you also know, she also was a big Dracula fan.
Yes.
And I only had regular NES. She got Super. And so she bought it, and we were so excited, and it was just it was difficult and blah.
Yeah.
And then, so I didn't know, I did a little more research. There was a 1994 Sega CD version of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was like, I didn't know anyone with Sega CD. That was like way too advanced for like my group of people. Yeah. I can't imagine what they cost back then either.
A lot. I only knew the games for that because the video store I was at rented them.
Oh, okay,
so
right.
I would see the covers and be like, that must be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play it, but.
So because I was so curious to see that, I watched, there's an hour-long playthrough of the whole game, of that Sega CD game on YouTube, and I threw it on, and I was like, I skipped ahead a few times. So I'm watching this, and like I mentioned to you before, you said, oh, there's probably cutscenes in the movie.
Yeah.
Which
Sega
is what they were allowed to do. Yeah. So those were in there. I was impressed. And then they had also shot a different scene, just specifically like a Van Helsing type character. It obviously wasn't Anthony Hopkins, with a profile sitting behind a in front of a fireplace with books behind him, a little pipe in his mouth, and he's telling like a story that was kind of written to explain Dracula, like a new part of like a script just written and shot just for the Sega CD game. That was impressive because that was like a cut scene in between. But the game itself is Jonathan Harker kind of looking like a ninja, and I was wondering if it was from a different like ninja engine or something on Sega CD that was like he doesn't have a weapon, he's just punching and kicking things. Yeah. So he's going through this land, punching bats in the face and kicking them, kicking Dracula, punching, like a ninja. So he's like punch, kick a bat. Punch a vulture.
Because that's going to do anything to Dracula.
Hit some skeletons. There's like some vomiting zombie things. Yeah.
The hell's that?
punching the brides in the face as they circle around him. So for it to be upgraded and look a lot cooler, with what a Sega CD could do, the gameplay was like goofy as heck.
Yeah.
If you want to laugh, check it out. Obviously, no one's going to last that whole hour. I just scrubbed through a lot of it because I wanted to be like, oh, who does he fight now? Oh, this is okay. That's how it ends.
I just want to scroll through to find the little extra cutscene. That sounds neat.
Yeah, it's cool to see. Mm. In 1993, Williams put out a pinball machine.
Yes, I have played that. Yeah.
I am jealous because I never saw it in my life.
They had it at Seaside Heights. One of the arcades had it there.
Girl.
Yep.
I only found this while I was casually looking for a pinball machine because in my head I wanted to, if I could buy one, I wanted to see how much they cost.
I have done the same.
3 or 4 years ago, I just went on eBay and looked for pinball, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, the pinball machine popped up, and I was like, ooh, I lost it.
Yeah.
And I watched YouTube videos of people playing that. It has like a cool feature. It has just real quick. It had a cool feature called Mist Ball, where one of the balls would be one of the ball, like the mist in the movie, would be there'd be a magnet under the board, and it would move the ball creepy by itself, and you had to be able to knock that ball out of the way with the other ball you had. So
okay, I've never seen anything like that in a pinball machine.
I think that was like an advanced thing. I think it's cool that you played it. I'm totally jealous. I wish I did.
I think I have pictures of it somewhere because I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Right,
I gotta look for that, yeah.
Never came across me in real life. There was a board game by Leading Edge that I never knew there was a Dracula board game. It was like, I think you're the hunting party, and it looked like there were cards involved. It said it was for 1 to 6 players, and I don't know why. I guess if you're that kind of person who's just like, well, I've got no friends today, you could still play Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, the movie, the board game.
For that loner out there.
I did find it for $25 on eBay, and I'm watching it because I was like, I might need it.
So we may play this in the future.
We might play this in the future. I was like, I think it's good for at least one of us to have it, and we'll play it.
Cool.
Apparently, and there wasn't a Suncoast by us because I was patronizing the local mom and pop store, but now I'm bummed because Sunpost Video put out a mini vinyl character figure set that I can't find any. I found like one of them for $20 on eBay. I wanted all 4. It's the Man Wolf self. It's Vlad and Mina they meet on the streets of London. And then it's Vlad in his red armor. So it's 4 characters.
Wow.
And if anyone can point me in the direction of those 4 things that aren't a crazy amount of money right now, I found one and that's it.
Put it in the comments. We'll look at the comments.
Please. I was like, dang it, Suncoast Video. Had no
Well, see,
idea.
I was a Suncoast buyer because movies that I couldn't find in my rental store, I would order and wait. I was the kid who knew what was going to come out on VHS, and would save
That's
up.
awesome.
Yeah, I would save up for like when the Universal movies were coming out on video, when Doctor Who episodes would come out on video. I was that person bugging the guy at Suncoast, but yeah, I never remember seeing that. That's cool.
No, yeah. And then the other thing that I saw that unfortunately you and I both missed buying, and now it's an exorbitant amount of money on eBay. How rude. And because we have a good amount of, I know you have a really good amount of the McFarlane Movie Maniacs.
They were the best
toys.
Best, right?
In 2006, he put out a box set of the Wolfman and the Batman characters in a box, in a set. Where was I?
I needed this. Yeah.
It had to be in Tower. It had to be in a bunch of other places that was at all the time. Why didn't I pick one up? Why didn't I see it?
The best we can figure
is regret, Vic.
Yeah, this must be a time period where both of us were on the broke end.
Because I know 2006 we didn't have like a big
my job was not good enough for me to. I think that was about around the time I stopped buying toys because I couldn't afford it. So
that's probably the same for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, we missed a good one.
Yeah, so I'm watching one on eBay and it's like $100 and I can't justify that. I was like, how dare you?
See, that's the type of thing I will look at conventions to find an
out-of-box
set and try to get them like half price or
Let's keep our eyes open for those.
And I will look for two, apparently. Yes. So
you're like, you got two of those?
Yeah, I'll buy all the ones you got loose. I'll get it all. Because as you guys know, I do love collecting the McFarlane monsters. Those were when that line first came out, it blew me away. God, it was amazing. Yeah. And as much as McFarlane did for comic books, he did so much more for action figures. It's amazing. God, yeah. So all of that is a pretty good sum of pretty much everything there is out there for collectors, right? That's pretty comprehensive, guys. I don't think we missed anything on this episode to talk about. And I know this is probably a bit of a deluxe edition as far as our running time, but
it just shows how much we love it and
how great it is.
It's a deluxe film.
Yes.
It's the big triple chocolate cake of the horror gothic love story genre. Is there one kind of ish?
This is maybe like the top. There's nothing that's gonna surpass this imagery.
No.
And it's beautiful and horrific all at the same time in all the ways we love. And I highly implore anybody out there who has not seen this film, take it from us. It is well worth 2 hours of your time.
And it doesn't even feel like 2 hours.
No.
In fact, when I looked at the runtime, I did a double take. Throughout the years, as much as I watched it, it goes fast to me, not in this is just blah, 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 here it goes. But I think because every time I'm so in it, I step in fully every time, and because I'm so in love with it, it shaped the way I view things, honestly. I feel like a lot of the dark beauty that I kind of look to or surround myself with, before being like really interested in a Victorian aesthetic and liking spooky things, the marriage of this at that young age like really set a precedent to be like, oh, this is the world you want to live in. You love this. And that's how I see things, like how I would see to like decorate a room or a type of a dress or even hear a song. Somehow I'll tie it back into Bram Stoker's Dracula visually in a way it makes me feel like that film. And that's impact. That's lifelong. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be like that for everyone, but that's why Vic asked me to do this because she knows how it feels for me,
I mean, for me, on top of all of the amazing style and stunning visuals and beautiful music, this to me is pure period filmmaking. Some of the best beautiful work and amazing everything from the casting to the script to the style and the ethics behind the film of how to make a film. It's everything that we all want in film, I think. And I think that the other thing I was going to say is escaping me. There was something else I was going to say.
I was once a bride for Halloween and won the costume contest that year.
That's true. That is true.
When I talk about wanting to even dress like that and embody it, as much as I wanted Mina's red dress, I was like, someone's going to have to make this for me, right? But I always saw the bride's outfit as definitely attainable with their like sepia-toned, beautiful kind of disintegrating beauty silks. So one year that wasn't that long ago at our good friend's Halloween party, it was the vampires versus werewolves theme. And I was like, here's my chance. I'm going to be a bride. And I asked my mother if she could help me because I have like no seamstress skills. I can visualize stuff, but I can't put things good together. And at the age that was, you know, a certain age and not young at all, I said, Mom, can you help me be one of the brides from Bram Stoker's Dracula? And I sent her a picture to remind her, and she said, sure. And we took like stuff that I had, and I bought certain things, and she like helped sew a little outfit together.
Very nice.
And I won. I think I won one of the prizes that year.
I believe you did.
Yes.
I remember.
Proud moment.
I remember what I was going to say. To me, I was surprised when I looked at the running time this time because I thought the film was longer because so much happens. There's so much content, and they get all that story in there. Is amazing. And I think we've surpassed the running time of the film, unfortunately. But
the running time of your show.
Yes. So I all this to say, thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about one of our favorites. You will definitely see Alison back on the show at some point because we do need to discuss, if nothing else, Silence of the Lambs.
Indeed.
But there will probably be other films that we wanted to, the two of us must gush together about to you.
It's part of our friendship. It's one of the reasons why I love you, Vic, and thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for doing this with me because I couldn't imagine doing this film without you. This is just such an important film. I know, because I would have been, oh my God, could you imagine if I did? And the text messages I would have gotten while you were watching.
You might talk about Blood Fountain. No, I'm just kidding.
You forgot to mention this person, and oh my God, why did you say that? So I had to have you here to avoid that situation.
It means so much to me. Thank you.
And I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you guys staying with us to hear about this film that we love so much. And we hope we can pass some of that to you.
Yeah.
And please watch modern horror films that are classic for this reason.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And we will see you another time. I will see you next time with another film. Alison will come back in the future and we will talk about more films together. And all of this to say thank you so much from the Horror Academic. And
thank you from Lady Hope. Love never dies.
Love never dies. And the blood is the life.
Yes.
Good night, guys. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
The Necrocasticon, where we blend horror and heavy metal for your pleasure and ours. Featuring interviews with the stars of heavy metal, horror, and more. With host speculative fiction author and journalist Thomas R. Clarke, YouTube sensation Mr. Scott Reacts, foodie and metal historian, Smoking Walled Ball, the Spartan Warrior, Sergeant Fury, Dan Roberts. And our guy on the couch, Uncle Skip. 'Cause we all need a guy on the couch. Oh, and me, Charlotte, your virtual hostess. Available Mondays, wherever you find your fine-ass podcasts.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.